Good morning, all honorable members. Good morning to the representatives of the Social Development Department. It is Tuesday, the 20th of August, 2024, and this is the Standing Committee for Social Development. A warm welcome to all of you. Ms. Jamke, can you confirm, do we have any guests online?
It's just the members.
No guests online. I will now grant an opportunity for members to kindly introduce themselves. My name is Wendy Kaiser-Philander, and I'm the chairperson of this committee.
Morning, Chairperson, and morning to the officials. I am Member Boyson, and I'm a member of this committee.
Morning, Chairperson and Committee. I'm Donita Stevens, and I'm a member of this committee.
Môre voorsitter, collega's, administrasie. My naam is François. I am François Kamper. I'm the member of the committee. Thank you.
Goeiemôre en baie dankie lid Kamfer. Ek gee oor aan die departement.
Good morning, all. Thank you for inviting us here today. I'm Mashinette Jonkerman, and I'm the Director for Child and Youth Care Centres. I'm standing in for Liana Goosen. Unfortunately, she can't be here today. She's the Chief Director, Social Welfare Services, and GBV is one of her functions that she must do. Nicolette will introduce herself, but there was a need. We had a meeting, our previous MEC Shana Fernandez saw a need to take GBV further and to promote the GBV. And then we brought Nicolette Ras in, and Nicolette Ras is driving the GBV process for us in this directorate. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Nicolette Ras, as Ms. Mashinette indicated. I'm seconded as the gender focal person for DSD, coordinating the GBV implementation plan for DSD.
Thank you very much. And again, a warm welcome to you. For the record, apologies received, Member Leon van Wyk, and he's alternated this morning by the Honourable Member Noma French Mbombo, who is online. And also Member Van Minnen is joining us online. Member Van Minnen, perhaps just for the record, if you can hear your voice online.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. And also apologies received from Minister Lont, as well as the HOD for Social Development, as they are attending a PCF in Beaufort West today. At this point, colleagues, I'm going to hand over to the Department of Social Development to brief the committee on the programs and the intervention strategies that support women in the Western Cape. And the order of our engagement will be, as I said, I will grant the department the opportunity. We have received the presentation as well. I will give an opportunity for a question and an answer session. After we have exhausted those, the committee will then stay behind to deal with committee business, but also any recommendations or resolutions that emanates from the presentation that is provided to us this morning. So thank you so much, and over to you. Excuse me, before we go ahead, just on my left-hand side as well, our very capable procedural officer.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Namonde Cham, the Provincial Officer for Health and Social Development.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jamke. You may proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Nicolette Ras will take us through the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, good morning again, colleagues, and thank you again for the opportunity that we have to present here. I think for us, I mean, we've just had a discussion now about anger and how do you deal with our boys. And I was just thinking, how will it be if we have a society that is free of gender-based violence, and we can just be free as women, as men, and as children, and persons with disability, and older persons. But yeah, that was just a thought, colleagues. I want to take us through the presentation that we forwarded to you guys. And I think because we have a crisis in South Africa about gender-based violence, domestic violence, there was a total shutdown campaign in 2018 that was civil society had a rise and say to government, you know what, government, we had enough. What are we doing as government to support and interventions for our women, our children, and our persons with disability, which is our vulnerable groups? That happened in 2018. And of course, our president then had a summit in 1 and 2 November in 2019, and 400 organizations represented our women, our children, and persons with disability there, and they discussed what is the plan, what is the way forward, what is the challenges that we experience with domestic violence or gender-based violence in our communities and societies. Some of our department officials were also present. Unfortunately, it wasn't one of I wasn't present, but our C. Liliana Goosen, she was present at that meeting. Then, of course, colleagues, with all strategies or interventions that was being drawn up, there was an interim steering committee that was allocated the responsibility to work on the NSP. And when we work on any document, of course, we need to include legislations. We need to, let's say, what does legislation say? What does international treaties say when it comes to a gender-based violence document, or I think any strategy that we need to draw up and that we want to implement in our societies. Then, of course, we needed further refinement. Then we needed to go to the provinces to say what's happening in the Western Cape that is different from KZN, Gauteng. And we also had then our consultations here in the Western Cape. And then we came up with the NSP. And I think, colleagues, with every strategy that we have, there must be a vision, there must be a purpose, and we must have a focus of it. For us, we would love to have a vision that is free of gender-based violence directed to our women, our children, and LGBTQI plus community, as well as what I did not add, colleagues, is older persons, persons with disability, and as well as our perpetrators. But we will speak about that again. Then, with the purpose of the NSP is to provide a multi-sectoral, a clear strategy that will be able and a framework to coordinate national responses to the crisis in our country. And then, of course, our focus, colleagues, is for all women, or interventions that specifically on all women. It doesn't matter your age, your physical location, where you are, whether you're in Klaver, Tukpa, in which area, and also sexual orientation. As you guys, I'm not sure if you guys are aware what's happening in Ceres about our LGBTQI community that is being abused. They're being killed because of the just because they are part of the LGBTQI community. Colleagues, and I'm going to go to our next slide. The GBV strategy do have 6 pillars. The reason why I put the 6 pillars there, and again on the second slide, is just so that it can be clear, colleagues. The pillar speaks to accountability, coordination, leadership, prevention, rebuilding of society, justice, safety, and protection, response, care, and support and healing. And then pillar 5 speaks to economic empowerment. And then pillar 6 speaks to research, information management. Colleagues, I just want to go to, if we look at slide 1 that speaks to the 24 demands, the 24 demands that was made is incorporated in the six pillars as the NSP, in the NSP. Yeah. And then pillar 1 speaks to, colleagues, as I've mentioned, we also speak about harness all to respond to our crisis. How do we respond as government and civil society to the crisis of GBV? How do we address the structural drivers of gender-based violence in our community? How do we address the social norms in our community that we say is accepting that your husband can beat your wife when you're in the marriage? How do we address culture, religion, patriarchy in our communities? And then also, how do we stop violence of happening? And then also, how do we enforce, implement, and adopt the laws? How do we look at policies, legislation, SAPS, the national instructions, the NPA, and the Justice Department as well, colleagues? Then we look at provide victim-centered survivors, and we will speak about that because we as DSD, we do have a victim-centered approach. And then also we have enhanced strategic institution and resourcing coherence and alleviate accountability at all levels. I think all our government departments and civil society, we need to be accountable. You can hear I'm Afrikaans speaking, né? Deepening understanding and knowledge of our communities as well as the NSP and what our women and our children are suffering, then colleagues, we must have commitments on all levels. We must have commitment of political leadership. We just came through an elections. These changes in the community. So we must have these leadership support, and also, of course, private sector. SPA is one of our funders that will be able to support. I don't know if you saw the bags that SPA normally have, fight gender-based violence. So we also need the private sector involved. We as civil society, as government departments, we need to be accountable. When things change, how do we adapt then? When the community changes, how do we adapt our interventions and our strategies? How do we come back and say this is not working in the communities and re-look at other strategies and interventions? Colleagues, of course, we do need a whole of society approach. And then also we need to localize, and we need to localize gender-based violence, look at what is the indicators that speak. So as government department speaks to gender-based violence, and how do we then at the interventions provincially and locally. I can feel now. Okay. Colleagues, just the journey that we've been through since 2018, and I think Ms. Jonkerman, she alluded earlier on that our previous MEC, Ms. Shana Fernandez, she led the gender-based violence in our in the province, and we did have a cabinet meeting on the 25th of August, which indicated that she will lead it, and from the our cabinet or our MANCO adopted that Ms. Shana Fernandez or DSD will lead this department. And then, colleagues, on 2022, we again had summits. And for DSD, just for input, what is happening, how far we are with the NSP, is projects being implemented. We had a provincial summit as DSD, as well as in Bredasdorp and with Georgia. This, colleagues, was not only DSD and government departments, but also civil society organizations, as well as our community members that was part of this provincial summits that was held. The same year, colleagues, in 2022, it was review at the task team. And it was adopted. And then we had in 2023, it was adopted by our cabinet MANCO. Colleagues, I think with all strategies and with all policies, legislations, we need to review it. We will have a review session from 1 to 2 October, where we will review the strategy with the government departments. The next role speaks a bit about, as Ms. Marchanet indicated earlier as well, we don't have resources available. When the NSP came, there wasn't any budget allocated in. So I mentioned earlier on that I was seconded from crime prevention into the into Ms. Goosen's unit just to coordinate the gender-based violence implementation plan for the department. Colleagues, my role is when our 13 government departments, every government department must report on gender-based violence quarterly. So when they submit quarterly, we collect that report. Obviously, we do analyze it, we do the information gathering, and we do ask them how's that, just for clarification purposes, for when we need also to answer to our CD and our HOD. And in this, as part of the 13, we do have a task team, colleagues, that they will submit the reports to us. Then we do have, when we have our quarterly forum meetings, our engagement, we do look at intergovernmental opportunities that we have. We do say, okay, what is happening at local government? How do we partner? How do we share resources? Like I've indicated earlier, we don't have a budget, ladies and gentlemen. Then what we do is also education, an element of education. We do with health department do have a violence prevention unit now. They have new persons that is staff that has been appointed. They approach us, and we do then train and take the staff through to the through the reporting as well as the NSP. And we also did that for the Department of Health. We did it for DCAS, as well as we're doing it now for infrastructure on the 2nd of September. Can I continue? It's okay. Okay. Then, colleagues, to come to the pillar 1, which speaks to accountability, coordination, and leadership. As Department of Social Development, we have various stakeholder engagement. And the reason why we do have forums is also to keep each other accountable. We must report what are we doing, like I said, for gender-based violence. We do, colleagues, we don't only keep each other accountable, but we also share successes, what worked, what did not work, how do we make it better. And then also, of course, we do look at our failures, and we also look at the plans, how do we make it better, and what is our future plans then. Colleagues, these forums that we have as DSDs are victim empowerment forums, which we do have provincially. We have it regionally as well as local forums. And these forums we have quarterly. We do have our crime prevention forums, which is also held quarterly. We do have our trafficking persons task team that we also attend, and then also our gender justice forum that is. Besides that forums that is there, like I've mentioned earlier, we also have our older persons forums and as well as our disability forum, because they are also part of our vulnerable groups. The pictures there that I've just said is just to show you just this is our forums, and we do engage with various departments. Although SAPS, NPA and Justice is national departments, they do attend our forums as well. And we do have the support of these departments in our in the Western Cape. Sorry, colleagues, then we go to pillar 2, which is prevention, rebuilding our society. And there we also have then our community-based workshops, which is held across our Western Cape. We communities just gather and we speak to them about gender-based violence. We do have our education around workshops and as well as individual interventions with men as well as with women. We just had this morning a discussion that more and more this... Oh, okay.
Apologies, you may proceed.
More and more, the stats reveal that our women also abuse. So we really need interventions with our women, and also with interventions with our women. For if they perpetrated, then there must be interventions with our men as well, because they do experience trauma. They also and sometimes we just feel like, okay, the men is okay because we have been raised, men don't cry, we need to be brave, but we also know that we need interventions with men as well. Colleagues, like I've mentioned, we do have awareness programs, as the pictures will say, reflect there, that we do have awareness programs in various, and we do campaigns as well. We also do, colleagues, our crime prevention program and our VEP program do have our school-based programs, which is our crime prevention programs that we do with not only focusing on boys, but with women, with girls as well in the schools. How do we talk with each other? What is this? How to manage anger, sexuality, substance abuse, bullying. So we do have, this is just a few themes that we do in our schools. Teenage pregnancies, colleagues, you might think teenage pregnancies is still also a challenge when we go into the schools and when we look at stats and collate with education department. Then colleagues, our funded organization also train their staff with interventions with men, how to deal with men, what do you say, and how to approach men as well as with women perpetrators in gender-based violence. What we also fund as a victim empowerment program, we do fund organizations to render supervision services to our social workers that render service to gender-based violence, how to deal with it, and also, colleagues, just to educate them the supervision framework that we as social workers need to comply with. Then we also have some of our staff, when we in forums, colleagues, like I've mentioned, we will discuss what is the challenges, and some of our members will indicate that I don't know what is the rights, what's the role of STEPS, what is it that the women what happened when she applied for a protection order, what is the processes, what is the role of STEPS. So we do education and programs and training as well in our forum meetings. Colleagues, then in pillar 3, like I've mentioned earlier on, it's more the responsibility of SAPS, Justice, and NPA. But for us as DSD, we also, we put our leg in, or we also look at what services we can provide. And our Kusaleka model, which is our one-stop center, which is based in Heideveld, do offer paralegal services. Colleagues, that is not only for a woman that's living in the shelter, but it's for walk-in clients as well. So what they do, the paralegal officer, they would say, explain to the client, how do you apply for a protection order? How do you apply for maintenance maintenance order, what happens at court, the processes in court, and also in cases where the woman say, now I had enough, now I would love to go for the divorce. And then we also explain to them what is the procedures and the expectations in the divorce procedures and where we refer. What I must say, colleagues, what we do as well here at the Kusileka model, some of our women or our men or persons that they I can't do it alone. I need support. So we will always have a social auxiliary worker or somebody that will assist the person at court. We also do victim impact reports as social workers and probation officers. We write the victim impact reports. Court will request reports. What happened to Nikki when she went or when somebody raped? What was the impact? How did the impact influences Nikki? And there we need to then consult with various the churches, the school, and all the persons and the family. What was the impact of the rape or the domestic violence that she or he encountered? Colleagues, then we're looking at pillar 4, which is response, care, and support and healing. And here again, I just mentioned the Kusileka model. I'm not going to repeat it. And then, of course, our legal service, very important. I think my colleague, we just spoke about it, the psychosocial intervention. How do we deal with my feelings when this comes up? When I feel really worthless, when I feel that I'm like the words that sometimes we utter as females and males to our partners or the person that we love, supposed to love. So to rebuild that person. So we also take them through psychosocial services. We also offer them shelter services, which is accommodation. We've got 25 shelters in the Western Cape, and we do have shelters in all the 6 regions that we have. And just added a few stats, which is 1,900 now 1,900 women that we accommodated. And then, of course, we also do our families program, do family preservation programs. And there I just added the stats, how many families they reach. And colleagues, we just added, it was not focused on men perpetrator program, but it's perpetrator program where it's male and female, which is 1,952. And then also this morning, Marshall just indicated, Nikki, please mention the 10 TCC centers that we also have, that we also fund organizations to render psychosocial services at the TCC centers, but also the containment and also taking through to the client what is happening at the TCC center, what is the expectations and the way forward when she has been violated. Okay. And again, colleagues, I would really like to allude to the picture that says sex assigned. It's non-binary, so it's not only for male, female, but across LGBTQI plus community as well. Then, colleagues, our pillar 5 speaks to economic empowerment. How do we then as DSD empower our women? We do have our shelters that offer CV writing for our women. We do have sewing classes. We have cooking, craft making, ABIT classes for our ladies, and as well as computer classes, because some of our women come from various communities. It's not only the poorest of the poor, but some of the women will say, will you assist me in applying at a university, at a college? So we do offer that service as well. And then part of the economic empowerment, we also have our EPWP, or Expanded Public Works Program, that also do sustainable livelihoods in our areas, which is focused on our youth as well as our women, which is cooking classes, sewing classes that they also have in our communities. Then, colleagues, on pillar 6, we have research and information management. What we did last year with research with victim empowerment, had a research which spoke to an evaluation of our Kusileka one-stop model that was conducted, and as well as our older persons project, that older persons program that speak to evaluation of interventions for older persons in the Western Cape, colleagues. And I think I spoke to that. How do we always, when we do research, what is currently happening, and then how do we make it better? What is the recommendations in how do we make services or adapt our services to the needs of our communities in that? And if I mentioned earlier on, colleagues, that we do have a review strategy, and we would really would look at the changes in our communities, the migration, the unemployment, and how do we adapt the services to that. Thank you, sir. Then I just added, colleagues, change is required at all levels, colleagues, as at the community level, individual, family, the relationships that we have with each other, and as well with our children. I think if we can, I don't know, if we can educate the mommy, the child, the daddy, and in all aspects, then we will be able to combat gender-based violence in our communities. Colleagues, and I think with every project or strategy that we have, that we implement, there's always challenges or lessons that we learn. I would love if we can have a budget to say, how do we have, and they know I speak about lots about money because there's no money for these kind of interventions for everything. But with everything, colleagues, we do have lessons learned. We do need the commitment of staff and implementers. We need the commitment, colleagues, of decision makers, because without decision makers, and besides, I normally say the upspace people must give us the go ahead so that we can continue with the implementation, so that our people can benefit. And also looking at utilize activities which can be validated. Is it proven? Does it work for our communities? And then also, colleagues, a safe space for our staff, because in many times what we also experience is that sometimes the staff that works with gender-based violence in DSD, they are being abused, or they had been abused, or had been violated, but we don't know about it. And how do they deal with it inside when they work with the client? I'm going to speak Afrikaans. How do you deal with this inside when you speak with the client? Because your emotions will come out, and now and you will remember what you've experienced. And some of our staff do get emotional, colleagues. But yeah, we are all humans. And then networking and building relationship. This is so important for us when it comes across to other departments as well as civil. So sometimes I will tell Mosaic, but you've got a little money for printing, and that can we forward our pamphlets for printing, and that so we could do collaborate with other stakeholders, like I said, and sharing of resources, colleagues. And that is it. Thank you so much, colleagues, for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, ma'am. May?
Thank you, Jay, for allowing me. What I would just want to add is our Tutuzela centers, PCC centers in communities is growing. And I am really very happy. We just had an opening in the Mitchell's Plain yesterday of a TCC center that offers so much in communities. And what I said yesterday, we need to do more awareness everywhere. So everywhere we go, we need to tell people. I mean, I'm from the community of Stellenbosch. There's a TCC center. If I only reach 5 per month people who I can share it with, because in the Tutuzela center, this centers function so well. When I don't want to say a woman, but when anybody enter the TCC center, you won't be exposed to the community. Everything is happening in the center. It's a one-stop center. So we accommodate you. We do the rape test. We give counseling for you. Some of the centers, most of the centers are on the hospital property. It's only Stellenbosch that's not at the hospital. So doctors can easily access you. You don't have to now go and sit in the emergency room for how long to wait for a doctor anymore. Mosaic is one of our funders. They do so much for the community. I mean, the TCC involvement is so good. NACOSA is assisting. SUPS is assisting. SPAR is assisting. There's businesses that bought into the TCC centers, but communities are not made aware of what a Tutuzela center can offer them. I think if all of us just take the responsibility on ourselves to talk to your friend about it, your friend's friend may be abused. Just talk to your friend so that messages can go out. I mean, GBV currently in our communities it's spiraling out of control. as I said yesterday to just now to the colleague, your neighbor may be abused next to you. It's time for us to tell these people it's a right to stand up. Go to the TCC center, just get some idea in terms of what they are doing. I am sure if even you visit the TCC center, we can organize it, and then you can see for yourselves what services is being offered. Very good centers. It's looking nice. The person coming in, entering is made comfortable, and you can talk on your own pace. There is spaces where we also take the lady. I keep on saying the lady. It's not only the ladies that's these days being victimized or bullied or whatever. It also can be the turnaround. But some TCC centers have also residential space where you can stay so long if you are scared of your husband, where you can also be with your child in the TCC. But it's time that we just go into the communities and give the awareness to the communities out there. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation and the additional information provided. We are currently in Women's Month, and this committee saw it fit that, as you said, communities are not always aware of the pot of services that are available to their disposal. And I hope and I pray that through this committee meeting, if someone didn't know, that they will be made aware of the various interventions and assistance that currently exists. Colleagues, before we hand over to the question and answer session, online, Minister, or rather Member Mbombo, I mentioned that you are standing in for Member Van Wyk, but I omitted to ask that you introduce yourself for the record. My apologies.
Thank you very much, Chair. Noma French Mbombo, an alternate member for this committee. I'm standing in for Member Van Wyk. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Member. And it's great to have you with us this morning. And then we have other members joining us as well. Members, for the record.
Good morning, Chair and everyone. My name is Rachel Van Vogel, an alternate member of this committee.
Welcome, Member Van Vogel.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ayanda Barnes.
Welcome, Member Barnes.
Morning, Chair. Good morning to all. Member Aisha Kassim. Thank you.
Well, warm welcome to you as well, Member Kassim. Honorable members, we've had the presentation. I'm sure that you've made your notes from that. By show of hands, Namonde will assist me if there's any hands online. I see Member Van Vogel and Member Kassim, Member Barnes and Member Boysen, in that order.
Thank you, Chair. Ek moet sê, Chair, ons was vroeg. Ek wil hom verskoning vra. Ons het by die toedeur omgedraai, toe so 6de vloer toe en weer terug en toe het ons begin rondvra en uiteindelik het iemand gesê ons moet die een kom. So ons vra verskoning dat ons laat is. Chair, I'm actually very excited. I'm from a rural town, also Afrikaans speaking. Ek is 'n Afrikaans sprekende vrou. But nevertheless, my issue of my concern is it's the first time that I'm hearing about centers all over the Overberg. The province. Now, my question to you is in terms of you do have centers all over the province. Are you actually saying in the rural areas you also have? Can you please tell us where are they located, in which towns in the province and regions? Can you please tell us more about that? Because I think the rural areas are also part of the province, and we are experiencing a lot of problems there because alcohol it's a huge problem. Then secondly, Chairperson, my question is on slide 4. Regarding the 6 pillars of the GBVF strategy, I am particularly focused on pillar 1, the accountability, coordination, and leadership. This pillar is crucial for me. especially in the light of the concerns I raised in our recent committee meeting about the sexual harassment case involving officials of a department, but perhaps it happens somewhere. I really want to understand your role when it comes to when officials are involved. How does this strategy address GBV within the institutions like the Western Cape government, where we can mention things like the harassment and abuse of female employees. You know, we know the incident of a well-known person here in the department. I don't want to mention our names again, but I mentioned it in our previous meeting. So how do I mean, like, and I want to understand your role in all of this. Let me park there. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Van Vogel. And then Member Kasim.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed that you mentioned that these programs for the LGBTQ community. I just wanted to check or get an idea what programs or workshops are there exactly, how many, and where exactly are those programs or those organizations located that you mentioned? And then do you have a report or the stats with the different age categories of those affected by gender-based violence? Because I think it could be something in future that we could maybe look at for oversight purposes to go and visit the top 3 areas or police stations with the gender-based violence, with the most gender-based violence stats. And then on the issue of gender-based violence, I take note that the gender-based violence implementation plan and its journey, which are outlined on slide 7 and 8, if I'm correct. My concern there is currently our legal system does not categorize gender-based violence on its own as a particular category of crime due to the fact that gender-based violence could be rape, it could be assault, and so on. So I wanted to check, based on this implementation plan, how does the department track its effectiveness? And then also, how do you track if the plan is working so far in terms of curbing incidents of gender-based violence in the province? And my last one is, does the department keep track of reports at court, you know, from court watch briefing, from the court watching briefs so far as to relate to gender-based violence? Do you keep track of it, and do you have like a report that can be given to the committee? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Kasim. Colleagues, are you happy that we deal with the 2 questions and then come back for the other 2? You may respond.
I'll go on. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. For the questions, ma'am. And I think I wanted to go to the first one that you indicated, that we do have domestic violence shelters in all our regions. It might not be in all the region. Sorry, in all the rural areas, but we do have one. I'm not sure if you want specific areas. If we look at Cape Winelands, which is our Worcester area, we do have one in Stellenbosch, and we do have one in Worcester specific, the domestic violence shelter. If we look at Overberg on that side of Bredasdorp area, we do have a shelter in Bredasdorp, but it's not funded by DSD, but we do have one. And then we also have another shelter, which is in just before you get into Caledon. I'm seeing the shelter here, but we in negotiation or in talks with the shelter in Caledon. Our program manager, this came up now the other day when we had our referral pathway in Caledon. This discussion came up, we brought it back to the table, and now our program manager, which is Rene Botha, is in consultation with the organizations like rendering services, or the shelter that is rendering services in Caledon area that accommodates women. We do have one in Bredasdorp, like I said, and in Caledon. It's not funded, because if you are funded by DSD, you must be registered with us. You need to comply with the norms and standards, as well as which is, you know, the whole and the bylaws and that. So our program manager, Rene Botha, they are busy doing. We do have one in if I'm going to look, I'm looking at the areas now. If you look at our West Coast region, we do have 2. We do have our Daisy shelter. We also have our Friedenberg one. It's just past Friedenberg, our one, a Daisy. And then we have one, Siyabonga. We have In Friedenberg, the metro is, I will always say, I'm feel your sentiment, the metro is overpopulated. We have enough. We've got St. Anne's, we've got Sisters Incorporated, we've got SAR Department, but what about our rural? In George, we do have Pambili, which is in George. I'm looking at the suburb now where she is at. And then also in Mossel Bay, we do have SIF, which is creating effective families. If we're looking at the rural area specific, it's not as overpopulated, like I say, here, but we do have shelters, and we know that there is a need for shelters in the rural areas, ma'am. Eden Karoo, that is Eden Karoo. We don't have one in like your Calitzdorp region, but our Calitzdorp people are transported to George, which is in Bambili, and then also to Mossel Bay. We don't have Ladysmith. There isn't. If people will, if service providers will come up and they will say, you know what, when we have a call of proposals and service providers will indicate that they do, we do then what we do when they submit the business plan, we assess the business plan, and then we will send out our staff. I was one of them at some time. We would do an assessment to find out, is it viable for our organization or to partner with a shelter. Yeah, unfortunately, ma'am, we don't have one in Ladysmith, our Calitzdorp area on that side, but we know women do. But we do have social service organizations in Calitzdorp, which is Hope Options for psychosocial interventions there. But we will transfer the ladies then. And we don't have one, we do have one in Oudtshoorn, or RC44, our shelter in, and they do render services there in Duiselsdorp.
Thank you very much.
Not so,
Yes.
no, she's going to cover the second one, ma'am.
Correct, Member Van Vogel.
Okay, the second one
Please,
was
your mic, please.
Sorry.
Thank you.
second one was on slide 4. Oh, and you wanted to learn more about color 1. Oh, the sexual harassment officers. Okay. Okay, we as a department have a sexual harassment committee. The sexual harassment committee is the chair is one of our senior members, and it's Ramula Patel currently that's driving that, and all the officers is a sexual harassment officer. So if there's a complaint of a sexual harassment case, the person can call the sexual harassment officer at the directorate specifically, and everything is done confidentially. And then the sexual harassment officer go to that person, or the person can come to the sexual harassment officer, and then counseling start. And then if it's going to if the person, we ask the victim, if the victim want to go further, what does the victim want the department to do? If the victim say that I want the person to be disciplined, we go to disciplinary rule, all confidential, because we try to protect the victim in the workplace. So there is a sexual harassment committee in the department where victims can call, and also if they just want advice, they can call anonymously, and we'll link them up with a sexual harassment officer that's in that directorate. So what essentially happened, I'm not going to name names, but if the victim want to go further with charges, we link up with Department of Labor that start the disciplinary process.
Thank you very much. And then the questions of Member Kassim.
I'm going to go with the first one. I'm going to go with the first one. When you ask about the programs for LGBTQI plus organizations and where and how many has been conducted, we've got an organization called Triangle Project. They are situated in Observatory. We fund this organization to render services to our LGBTQI community. We don't fund other organizations. We do have, but as non-funded organizations, what they do when we ask for educational workshops, they will assess and find out what is happening in our communities, and they will go out in the communities. It's mostly come from DSD, because when we go into the communities, we assess. When we have educational workshops, people will say, I don't know how to deal with my child that is betraying certain behavior, and how most of us, we will say, I want nothing to do with this child, especially sometimes in our churches. So we do have these programs. We also have, I cannot tell you how many we have, but I can get that for you from the organization and where it's being conducted. But like I said, we do it across the Western Cape. I know we had sessions in Klaver as well, where we specifically worked with the churches in Klaver, where we say with the churches, the people or the LGBTI community felt that I was not welcome in church. How do we then? But Jesus loves everybody, if I can say that, colleagues. I hope I didn't cross a boundary now. So yeah, so how do we then approach that? So we had to go into Klaver and speak to the fraternal and how do they feel. What they did in Klaver, colleagues, they have their own church. On a Sunday, we get together and we read Bible and encourage each other. The same with Ceres. Like I said earlier on, a high cry of not domestic violence, LGBTQI cases. We zoom into the area. We do awareness programs there and then to lower the cases. We also had much intervention in our Nyanga area, Guguletu area. I'm not sure if you can recall. There was also our people has been burned just because I portray in that manner. Rape cases as well as Somerset West around. We also have a small area there where some of our corrective rapes happened just because, and then we will zoom into that. Our LGBTQI plus do have a forum. We will be able, I can get the information from Sharon Cox, which is the director, and then I can forward that information to you, ma'am. Yeah. The second question, it's about?
The gender-based violence plan, how do you track the effectiveness?
Okay.
That's sure. Thank you, member.
Okay. Sorry, you said forum meetings. Yeah. When it comes to the gender-based violence, we do discuss it at forums. What is the rise? What's happening at NPA? What's happening at DSC? Why would a person report at SAPS? Why would a person open a case at SAPS and not report to DSC for psychosocial intervention or not at health department? The same can move over. Why am I going to health department just because I'm a blue eye or I've been stabbed? I need the medical. And you will see the stats will always be skewed. When we do a comparison versus DSD, so many people reported to us for psychosocial intervention versus SAPS, versus health department, and versus justice department. What we do have at DSD currently, we started last year with a geo-mapping exercise. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, where we will say as DSD, all the cases that has been reported to psychosocial intervention, it also came to us. We will evaluate, we will collect the data, we will analyze the data, and we also will say in which suburb is the highest versus what's happening at SAPS. You are correct, ma'am, when we will say domestic violence, we will say physical abuse, but when the client reports at SAPS, she will say I was assault GBH, or it will be assault, it will be rape at SAPS, and for us it will be sexual abuse. So the stats and the terms are different. We did not, I can tell you, ma'am, we did not. And that is always a salad. When I speak to SAPS, I will say, but it doesn't. But we do get the stats and we do the comparison. We did not receive Q4 stats. I'm not sure if it's out yet, but when I inquired to do the comparison versus DST and SAPS. But unfortunately, ma'am, you are correct when you say the terms are different, but we do. What we are looking now, we're having a forum meeting next week on the 27th, and we will present the geo-mapping tool for the year to intern at DSD to say what is happening. Staff think they only send the information through, but what is happening with the geo-mapping tool is to say if we say in Athlone area, we've reported 10 cases. Now, what are we, or 100 cases? What is DSD intervention then there? Or the second quarter it was 10. So what did you do? Why is it happening? Why is the stats fluctuating? So we will be having that meeting next week to go with the year. What was the other question? Sorry. What is the other question?
Does the department keep track
with the court? We do keep track with the court watching briefs and why cases has been withdrawn. Fox, they are very involved. They are with us with the PDIA project. And the advocate there is Advocate Michaels. She will always report back to us. So many cases, they're busy with research, finding out why has the case been withdrawn? What is the reasons? Is there a lack of evidence? Was the prosecutor peruse the document. Did the victim not pitch at the court? Was the perpetrator, with the perpetrator, of course, we do follow up because we need the perpetrator there. But why did the victim not pitch at the court, and why was the cases withdrawn? So we're also looking at that with a project with POXMAM, Police Oversight and Community Safety. We are involved with Advocate Michaels on that project as well. She is roaming around in the Western Cape, currently looking, perusing at dockets with that. And then also with NPA, it's Meg Ali that we liaise with them, ma'am. Did I miss anything?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. I also want to say that we have stakeholder engagements which involve SAPS, the NPA, especially Ms. Bonnie Karikamvu and Lazelle Africa from the NPA, which also flagged all these cases for us in that meeting. Department of Justice is there, and then also POX, where these cases is highlighted, and we can also give our view that maybe is not the view of SAPS, so that SAPS can explain to us why this case wasn't in court. And I must say NPA play a vital role here, because NPA dig deep and they want to know reasons why. And you asked, do we have a report? Yes, we do get reports, and that is where we can also see what happened to the victims. We also, in all the areas at the courts, have probation officers from DSD, and the probation officers also keep record of the cases coming in.
I just add that cases of domestic violence cannot be withdrawn currently at court. You know, the amendment of the Domestic Violence Act. So it must, either the senior prosecutor can say, and then must be consulted with Nicolette Bell. Her position is a DPP. I know the abbreviation, but yeah. So it must be reported to her, and she needs to say why the case needs to be withdrawn. So with the Advocate Bell, sorry.
Thank you very much, Member Barnes.
Thank you very much, Chair. And happy Women's Month to the two beautiful ladies coming to present to us on Women's Month. Chair, I took priority in coming to sit in here because it's a Women's Month, and one would have really expected even more from the department on a crucial topic as the one that we are discussing today. But one learns by the day, every day, that women issues are left for women issues, and they must find their way through it. Chair, I think the two previous colleagues have covered from the main questions that I wanted to ask, but let me attach to where they left off. One, I think from the presentation, we got an indication on the growth of the Tutuzela centers, which I think I have seen the one in Stellenbosch, and I think it's one that one can say it's a model that can be used right through, and something that is working because of personal experience that I've seen happening there. So one would want to know, with the growth, how is it growing? How many Tutuzela centers are we having? And I also hear you, colleagues, when you are speaking from the side of the department, you speak of budgetary constraints. When you say budget, are you saying that yourselves as a department, you are not budgeting to us, or you are giving us a budget and we are not approving a budget? Also, if you can give us an indication as to when you want, or your needs, what is this that you are looking for? Because when you opened up your presentation, you also said that you needed the political will and political leadership on issues as this. So from this side where we are, we normally make a noise that this thing is not happening and that thing is not happening. And then today you are hearing that, okay, there's also a constraint. We understand there has been budget cuts that have been going on, but GBV, for example, is something we can no longer turn a blind eye to. It's a matter that whether there's a budget cut, that is one area that needs serious intervention, and it should be budgeted for. It shouldn't be a matter of politics or negotiating about it. So I would want the department from your side to say that this is what we are annually normally having, and what we were anticipating or what we were proposing is this, so that when we in our own spaces, we know that this is what's happening in the department, and this is where we want the department to move with GBV, because it cannot be a matter of politics. It's a matter of, it's women, we are suffering and we are dying. It should be prioritized. And then there's a slide, I don't have numbers on my slide. There's a slide that is indicating the journey from 2020 up to 2024. Now, what I'm not clear on the implementation plan is, yes, the journey is shown, but what is implemented? One would want to know from this plan. Normally, we have lots of plans, and the plans remain to be a paper plan. While daily people are dying, does this plan accommodate what we are currently facing in gender-based violence? Also, if one can get practical examples, for example, if we're going through a gender-based violence case, what is the normal process that one is going through? I know at the time when I was still at the Standing Committee of Community Safety, one would always say that gender-based violence cannot only be a matter for social development, it should be incorporated with police. How do you co-work together in trying to eliminate this pandemic that I would say that is in front of us? Chair, the one before the last one was, if maybe the department can also talk us through, they're speaking about the resources that are set aside on the GBV implementation plan institutional arrangement. They say DSD allocated resources by appointing a GBV implementation plan. Back to that question that I was raising, plan. What are the resources that have been put aside? Is it the human being, or are there programs? What are these programs that we are speaking about? For now, I'm going to park there. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Barnes. Member Boyson.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, mine are comments, and they're going to be very controversial, and I'm actually worried, Chairperson, that I can be in a lot of trouble in a unofficial man's court in society. I see myself and Member Comfort, we are outnumbered here. But Chairperson, I'm going to, the presentation in front of us, and we're all aware, is that it is probably 99% based on consequence management. We're dealing with consequences. And the reason I say I can be in a lot of trouble, I'm going to raise a cultural issue. And some of the women members on this committee, they'll probably be aware of this, and they'll understand where I'm coming from. But as I was saying that, it's going to be a can of worms. I'm a Xhosa man, and we go to initiation school. And there are procedures before you go to initiation school, during initiation school, and when you come back at that celebration, because you have now made it, and it's from boyhood to manhood. Now, there are unintended consequences, and this is where I can become into trouble, but I'll face it in society. We now, as men, need to start talking about these things. And the intentions have unintended consequences, and there are symbolic things, Chairperson, that we go through. And now that I think back, it causes some of these things. Just as an example, and there are taboos in the setup of going to initiation school, taboos in the sense that there are conversations where women should not be part of it. But now when I look back, there are impacts on women based on these conversations that we are having. For instance, whilst we're there are boys to men discussions, and this is where these terms come up, that boys don't cry, and you must protect your family, etc., etc. Now, what happens when we come back, and this is a Xhosa culture, The Sutus also go through it, but I'm going to speak from where I'm standing, Chairperson. And I don't know what would be the solution, but the educational part of the things that I will be mentioning here needs to get to these platforms where we have these initiation schools and these celebrations, and where we as men can enter, and we should have these discussions. When we come back, Chairperson, from that is that we are given gifts now that we've survived the tradition, and the discussions there are under the umbrella of life skills, you know, how you should behave now that you're a man. The gifts that we are given, I was given, I'm going to talk about myself. I was given a knife as a gift, and the symbolic thing of a knife is that you should always carry it with you, because you might bump into another traditional ceremony along the line or in the road, and then because it's open for every man. And then when you walk in there, you have your own knife to cut your own piece of meat. Now we carry knives because I was given a knife by the elders. The elders are giving us this. I was given a knife. I was given a box of matches, lion matches and whatever. And the symbolic thing about that as well is that when there's darkness, you know, you can strike a match and there would be life. And I was given a knopkiri. You have these beautiful knopkiris. And the symbolic thing about this knopkiri is that so that you can protect your family with this knopkiri. Now we know what happens with knopkiris. We use it on our wives. The knives, we use it in the street to fight. And I was given money. And a man should always carry money with him because you're the provider. Now, Chairperson, the reason why I'm raising these things is that the unintended consequences of that is that we don't use it for the symbolic purposes. These things are now getting used in GBV and in murders and in robberies, you name it, and the consequences, people end up at these units or in hospital or wherever. Now, I'm raising this, Chairperson, that there's also now a new trend, and I think this is where we need to get involved. There's also now a new trend of men. I think in the province, there's a structure called men's parliament. You know, the men came together and they formed the men's parliament. I think it's about a year or two ago. And I think that is probably also where I need to go and raise these matters, you know, where we can deal with some of these things needs to be stopped in order to curb the unintended consequences. We must stop giving people knives as presents at these initiation schools, etc. And also we need to bring women into the discussion, because the women are bearing the brunt of these things, and some of the women might even have the solutions because they're the mothers of these boys, and it's the boys who are turning into violent men most of the time, Chairperson. So, Chairperson, and it is taboo for me even now. There are discussions, these things I'm not supposed to raise in the presence of women. There are things that we can't raise. And if men overhear me in that, they can even call me in culturally, and then I can be found guilty. But I think we have now reached the stage where we should be called in. If I'm raising this, the man must call me in so that we can then, because one of the things that came out, we should not keep quiet. We must spread the word. So I will follow up on the men's parliament structure if it still exists, Chairperson, and then I'll communicate through you and probably see how far did they progress with that structure, and how that structure can also be brought in terms of spreading the message amongst boys to men. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Member Boyson, for that very bold and brave insight. And we look forward to hear back from you. Member Kamfa, I saw your hand. You have a question?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, colleagues. Chairperson, I'm a bit confused about this presentation. We welcome the presentation, but one thing you must clarify for me, please, the administration. You speak about forums and centers. Can you please advise me? Because if you speak about forums, then we have two questions. One, pillar 1 is slide 9. Where is this forums in the Western Cape? Is you say that these forums, you speak about accountability, coordination, and leadership. I am on this page. Where is this forums, and how many forums is in the province? That is what I would like to see. And where is the forums in the province? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Member Kamfer. We will provide the opportunity for the questions to be answered. And should you perhaps not have the information to your disposal at this point in time, we will resolve to request it from the department as the committee. You may proceed with the responses. Thank you.
Chair, and allow me to answer Member Barnes in terms of the TCC centers. I am so glad, Member Barnes, that you went to the TCC center, and it was said that it was the one in Stellenbosch that was visited. The one in Stellenbosch is very, very good, but I can promise you the others is just as good. The TCC work across in a model, structured model, very, very good. Everything is structured in the TCC center. Different departments have their hands on it. Department of Health and Wellness, there's a nurse, there's forensic services, and what I maybe omitted to say, there's also a state attorney at all the TCC centers that help with the cases of the lady. All this is under the leadership of Advocate Bonnie Carey Gamble, and she has got a passion, she's got a drive for this. So the TCC centers, I must say, if you visited Stellenbosch, go to Mitchell's Plain, brand new one, very good. The one in Athlone, also very good. We visited it recently. All the resources, everything is in that. I almost want to say a one-stop center. Very good. You also spoke about you wanted more programs because it's Women's Month. Every Women's Month, all the directors needs to have programs. Maybe that is something that we can share. We can give a written response on that, on all the programs we have. So when we are in this forum meetings, we discuss the evaluation. We do the evaluation of the programs, and also if there were successes or not, the stats, how many persons was raised, how did we do it, where did we do it. That is something that we can provide in a written response. In terms of the budgetary constraints, because in the beginning, Nikki opened with the GBV was highlighted in 2018, and then Masana Fernandez, our previous MEC, took it upon herself to do the GBV. Now, when Mrs. Fernandez, the previous MEC, took it upon our department, we didn't have a budget. We didn't budget for the GBV. So resources had to come from the different directorates. So we made use of the program social welfare, and we took from the budget that they have to implement and to the intervention strategy. So what Nikki was alluded to, she wants a specific budget just to drive the GBV program. Nikki will explain to you why she say that in terms of the budget. Then the journey 2020 to 2024, the implementation plan was not clear, and you needed practical examples that Nikki will also tell you. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, colleagues. For us, it's basically when we want to we as DSD, let me start as DSD, we also have our internal GBV committee that meets quarterly. It's very challenging because some of the staff will indicate, but how come we don't have a budget when it comes to like Marcianette indicated, we don't have a budget to do awareness programs when the woman or the men or if the community comes, there's nothing to give them. Remember, we're working with the poorest of the poor, and sometimes to get people at the or at an event as to say that there will be a sandwich or something, and also some of our speakers will say and when we want, maybe, for instance, I don't want to mention names, a speaker or expert in sexual abuse, then she will say, okay, I can't come, but will there be a budget? Will you be at least give me transport money? We don't have colleagues. When we need to do trainings, we will run around phoning facilities to say, can we do the training at your facility? Because if we go maybe to city of Cape Town, just using an example, in Southfield, then he will say, but Nikki, things has changed. You need to pay for the venue. So it's really challenging, colleagues, when we say we need to plan and we need to combat, you need to educate our staff before we go into the communities, but there's no budget allocated. Hence, I mentioned earlier on when I opened, I'm allocated, when we look at the structure, I'm at crime prevention unit. I come from VEP, crime prevention unit, but because of my background, our CD asked, Nikki, can you please support the when we look at, you asked us, one of our colleagues, Ms. Barnes, indicated that you wanted to know the journey and how to work with SAPS. We work very, very closely with SAPS Provincial. We do also have a PDI a project with Premier. So SAPS is in all, when we work provincially, Colonel is with us. And when we need to go in locally, ma'am, then I will send the mail out to, say, for instance, a Grabouw area, which is currently busy with a pilot. We will send it to Grabouw, but I will copy our Colonel in from provincial office, and he will then make sure that the staff is present there. What we also do, and a lot of needs that come out from our GBV coordinators at SAPS, the resources, I mean, I'm not sure, I don't want to speak about SAPS here, the lack of resources when they need to, there's no allocated vehicle to deliver a protection order. There's no staff that is dedicated. There's a GBV coordinator, yes, but the person needs also to be on the road with public, with patrols, but this person also needs to be. So we do work very, very closely with SAPS, NPA, Justice Department. With the referral pathway, we're busy developing that as well. We also look at what is SAPS responsibilities, what is there, what does the national instruction say when a victim enter the police station, then she needs to be taken to the victim friendly room for containment. So we do work very closely with our other national departments as well, ma'am. Thank you, Chair. You alluded to all the stakeholders that's working with us. I must inform the standing committee that we've got a very lively advocate, Lizelle Africa from the NPA. If we have challenges, we are on a group. So if we have challenges with SAPS, if we have challenges in terms of justice, she will get on the wagon. So we've got a group where we say this is our challenge. SAPS don't have a vehicle, and they will jump on it. So I must say the stakeholders work very good together in terms of this GBV. Also, to get back to the budgetary constraints, we are busy with our new business plans. We call it SDIP. It's the Service Delivery Improvement Plan. So we did highlight that fact there. And it is something that we're going to work on in the midst of all these budget cuts. All our important businesses is flagged. So we have a meeting where we are going to flag the improvement plan in terms of budget for the GBV. So it is something that's going to get attention now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Member Van Vogel, is there a follow-up or a new question? Because a new question. Okay, then I will have to give Member Stevens an opportunity and then I will come back to you.
Chair.
to the provincial revolve. As we know, more than 60% reported domestic abuse situations involve alcohol and drugs. What is the chances that these victims who are addicts get help in terms of rehabilitation for their addiction? Because as we know, when you open up social media, there's always a mother or a grandmother that cry out for help. And most of the time, they can't afford the private centers. It costs them a lot of money. Is there enough centers out there that's been funded by the government to support these families?
Thank you, Member Stevens. Member Van Vogel.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, it is well recognized that financial dependence on perpetrators can exacerbate instances of gender-based violence. In looking at these skills development on Pillar 5, economic empowerment initiatives, I have concerns about the effectiveness in breaking the cycle of dependence and enabling women to escape abusive situations. Can the department perhaps provide any success stories or case studies of women who have participated in these initiatives and have since achieved financial independence? Because I want a real world example, because it will be available in demonstrating the impact of these programs. And personally, I want to call on the department to consider expanding and enhancing the existing skills development and economic empowerment program. Yeah, and then lastly, Chair, the issue of the centers and the forums, I assume it's two different things. But I want to know in terms of the forums, because you didn't touch on the issue raised by Member Kamfer, but in terms of the forums, are they active, and are you also using the same model in terms of your centers? Yeah, thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Member Van Vogel. Ms. Jonkerman or Ras who's going to respond?
Thank you, Member Camper. I just wanted to clarify, are you referring, if you say centers, are you referring to the domestic violence shelters or, okay. We do have our forums. There is a difference between this forums and the centers. The domestic violence shelters, they do have their own women's shelter movement, which is provincially, which is currently the chairperson is Delene Roberts. So they do have their own movement. They call it their movement. They don't call it a forum which they meet. They have provincially as well as nationally where they meet. They're not part of DSD, but we know because we sometimes meet with them as well. Then our forum meetings, colleagues, the forums is all active. Like I said, we have provincial forums. We meet quarterly. We will have one now on the 26th of September, where the government departments will be there, as well as representatives from civil society will be present. We have it with COVID. We had it, obviously we had to go via Teams on but now we will have the 26th of September. We will have it of Karl Bremer, and those that cannot join in person will be able to join us via Teams on that. So that is active. The local, the regional ones is also active. At the regional level, we will meet in person regionally as well as on local levels. We call it service delivery areas, but on local, our local forums, they meet in person. Then how many forums is there? I think in each SDA, they have a local forum. So for instance, I'm going to use Athlone again because Athlone, then we have all our stakeholders in the surrounding areas of Athlone Athlone, which is our Belgravia area, Bridgetown area, persons that render services to victims, and then also our Manenberg, Heideveld, Philippi area. But Philippi is in on their own because they have a different SDA. So all the forums, we look at the suburbs, but we do have a structure which we can forward, which you can say, this is the SDA and the suburbs is surrounding that area. So the forums is active. How I know is because they must report quarterly on that as well. And in our VEP forum, they also must report. And when they don't, sir, we do ask them, how do we then help and how do we support there? Then, ma'am, I think ma'am asked about the alcohol and drugs. I wanted ma'am to answer. Do you want to go there?
Excuse me, before you go, Ms. Jongerman, Member Kamfer, you wanted to provide clarity? Your mic, please.
Is it only in the metros or in the rural areas in Johannesburg, Beaufort, West Coast, in Parel, Ceres? Where is the forums?
No, the forums is all over, sir. If we go to Klaver, we go to Vredendal North, we will be able to get, because in each region we have a gender-based violence, or we have a PIC unit, which is PIC stands for. Sorry, we use so many abbreviations. We have a PIC unit, but there will be a supervisor, a manager, and this unit in our department, they are responsible, or in our local, they must. So we do have Beaufort, Laingsburg, we do have in Eden Karoo as well.
So it's in all the regions, forums, which then communicate with the head office, and they need to give us stats in terms of what they did in terms of GBV, and then they need to evaluate the program and say if there were successes with stats. Sorry, Chair.
Sure, you may proceed.
Member Van Vogel asked about the prevention and rebuilding, and the substance abuse programs is one of the subdirectorates. So substance abuse directorate oversee the substance program. So we also have NGOs rendering the services which we fund per bed space, and we monitor and evaluate them. In terms of the number of substance centers, we can give you written feedback because one of our colleagues, Fatima Isaacs, is working with the substance abuse center specifically. And then we have a substance abuse center in Kensington, which is government owned, which address the substance abuse. Now, there were adults in that centers. What we found, Ms. Chair and Member Van Vogel, is Stevens. Yeah, I don't know why I got
members order, please.
Sorry. Okay. Member Stevens, what we found is interesting that adults don't pitch when they need to come for substance abuse. We're working on awareness sessions everywhere. Our totals in terms of the adults was very low, but the need or the demand was very high with children, youngsters. And we then decided to repurpose Kensington Treatment Center to accommodate the youth. We found fuller centers, and the youth, there is voluntarily, and then there's involuntary. Involuntary is those sent by court when they got in conflict with the law, and the magistrate found that substance may be the biggest problem here. Then they get to send to us, and then we have the voluntary youth. This youth is youth that's in communities that struggle with addiction. Alcohol, heroin, alcohol is the highest. Then you get heroin, and then it's the tuck. The substance abuse program at Kensington is very effective. We have a lot of successes. The children come back. We also learn them a skill when they're in the center. So I'm happy to say that it was asked how many. Nikki will also go into reality, into life scenarios, but we have 2 children that learned how to make vet cook. And when I visited Kensington, I just saw this girl look very familiar, and she was waving at me, and I stopped. And she has her own stalletjie with vet cook, making vet cook and selling it. So she is making herself. I mean, it's an income generating skill that she's doing. And I mean, it's only flour and water and yeast, but she's generating an income of that. So yeah, I think we've got enough substance abuse programs and NGOs out there. People are reluctant to make use of it. They don't want to come. But we are now closely working in terms of awareness sessions. We're visiting schools now. We're visiting communities wherever there's GBV matters. We do try to educate. We also do the hospitals. The team, as we speak, is in Mossel Bay currently, also to do awareness. We saw the stats is very high in the Eden Karoo. So we're looking into having a substance abuse center in Eden Karoo as we speak. They're looking at a venue for that. So I would say the substance abuse programs is enough over the province.
Thank you very much. Member Stevens, you look like you have a follow-up question. You may.
It is just whenever we get complaints in the community is where the parents say they did apply, but they always kept telling them that the centers are full and there's always a 3 to 6 months waiting list. Especially in the one in Kensington and the one in there's one in De Novo. I think that's also a government one. Because I know I went there once with the mommy, and that mommy was told in front of me that there's a 3 to 6 month waiting period. And then most of the times they don't come back to the parents at all. That is why I actually asked that question, if there is enough centers out there.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jonkerman.
Member Stevens, what we also discovered with this awareness is that some of the social workers out there doesn't know the application process, and they don't follow the application process because our substance abuse programs is not that full, and it's of awareness. It's because we called, and it's because we tell magistrates that the people get sent to the substance abuse programs, and that is one of our focus areas to make the awareness very good. And yeah, I don't know if I'm now overstepping, but if there is problems, I've got the email address which is on that. If they can email me, and then we can talk about it. This child and youth care centers is very full, but if the problem is substance, we can help. The overarching problem is the behavior challenge that a child had, and maybe it could be the problem that they wanted a child first in a secure care center to stabilize the behavior before sending the child to the substance abuse. So that could have been the reason, which I don't know. But what we do, we assess the cases, and if it's a pure substance problem or challenge that the mom and the child have, and the child is willing then to come to our centers, we do accommodate them.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, are there any further questions, comments? Doesn't look like it. Ms. Jonkerman and Ms. Raspax, if I can just ask you this question, I think it was on pillar 1 that you made mention of the various forums that exist. I know, for example, there's also a program with the GBV ambassadors, which is very closely linked to local government. And I think if we want to make inroads, if we want to curb these injustices, that is where we need to be, work very closely with local government. How do you expand that program? Exactly how does it work for other municipalities to also tap into that?
Thanks for that, Madam Chair. We do work very closely with the GBV ambassadors. We just had success in Swartland area, which is our Malmesbury area, as well as our Delft area, where our staff, we do go out, we recruit sometimes people volunteers, and it's also members from the CPF, Community Police Forum, and they will volunteer to be GBV ambassador. What we train them, we take them through the NSP, what is gender-based violence, define gender-based violence, how do we, just the basics, how to deal with the victim when they approach a victim or victim approach them. We just had a successful, it was the launch or the handover in in Grabouw area. Grabouw is a hotspot. So we just had that recently, I think 2 weeks ago. So we do look at, and we do work very closely with local government, ma'am, which is Wendy Binger, but I think Wendy left now the department with Prudence team, and in recruiting new members in and at the SDA level or at service delivery area, grassroots level, we do collaborate with local government as well, ma'am. So we are, and as well as with POX as well.
Thank you, Ms. Ras. How exactly does it work? Do you consult your data and then reach out to the area in order to recruit people, or do people approach the department? How exactly does it work?
What they do, we normally do in our stakeholder forums, when we can look at the rural areas, in rural areas, they might not call it a VEP forum, because there's so little service providers and we do everything. I do child protection, I do VEP and that. So we will call it the stakeholder engagement. There they will discuss what is the need. Then they might say, but at the church, these people that is interested in joining. So they then will address, bring the person or forward the name. So us as DSD, we will then make contact with the people, our local office, and they will contact us as province to say, we've got 10 people that would love to be part of our GBV ambassadors. We come out, not saying that our staff at SDA level don't have skills, but they are also part of the training, because when we leave, they need to be able to support the GBV ambassadors. That's that we, not that we leave, but that is in the community. So they can approach any stakeholder in the area, the churches, and then all our office, and then we will be able to come out and train, ma'am. Yeah.
And how do you find how effective is that intervention, and in terms of resources and budget?
Oh, the resource, the budget, like I said, there isn't a budget to reimburse the person, or just to say thank you for your services and that. I would say, ma'am, it is effective, it's working, because sometimes we, our social workers or our stakeholders are not available 24/7. If anything happens, in other provinces, we have the red or the yellow door. I'm not sure if you, the history of GBV, of VEP, we have the red door and the yellow doors. It's an auntie that it's literally painted, and if anything happens during the night, you can run to the auntie's house. So we don't have that, but we do have the ambassadors that is in the community that can contain, and then we are basically a phone call away that say, I will keep Nikki for the evening, but tomorrow morning I will bring Nikki to your office for further interventions, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ras. Ms. Jonkerman?
What I just want to say, Chair, in the ambassadors, names and everything is in all the police stations, in all the TCC centers, at all the safe houses, so you know where and who to link up with in your area.
Thank you so much for that additional information.
Sorry, that all the GBV ambassadors is also vetted. So we make sure that they're not involved in crime or anything.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Member Van Vogel, you have a pressing question?
Thanks, Chair, for covering me there. I was sitting with that question. Perhaps I can make it part of our we call it resolutions. I'm not sure, do they have, if we can get the contact details in each town of area of those people, at least we have contact person, because where I'm coming from, it's new for me. So if we can get that information, yeah, the ambassadors, who do we contact, even in our area? If let's say I'm experiencing such problems in my area, who do I contact, or who do I refer the person to, except the police?
Yeah.
Because what we know is we will refer the person to police, and then the person normally, no, we will deal with the issue. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Member Van Vogel. And then we can also make it formally part of our resolutions requesting from the department. At this point, Ms. Jonkerman and Ras, thank you so much for being with us this morning. And this is quite an issue, and I'm sure that you will understand. So the committee dug quite deep this morning, and I'm sure we're not even quite through the surface of this enormous issue within our province and within our country as a whole. So also I would want to see, this shouldn't be a once-off. because it's now August and Women's Month, and the rest of the 11 months of the year, we forget about the issue. And when it comes to August, we are suddenly reminded of it. So I'm sure we're going to have very definite and concise resolutions and recommendations. And we will have you back here around the table because this is a priority. And us as a committee has a responsibility and a mandate bestowed upon us from the people of this province to keep the executive accountable and to make sure that the department do the necessary when it comes to GBV and femicide. But I know there are sometimes factors that hampers the progress in terms of us wanting to be where we need to be at this point in time. But I think for us as a committee, this is a starting point. There's a lot, for example, that I didn't know that I've learned this morning and that I can follow up and take back to my constituents. And that is the relationship I want to foster with the committee as well as with you as the department. I believe that's the only way we're going to make progress in this regard because we've got the same mission. We need to eradicate this dreadful injustice against women, children, but all vulnerable in society. So thank you so much for your time, and we do look forward to have you back around the table, but even go out and see for ourselves what is being done in the province. Thank you very, very much. Any closing remarks from your side?
Yes, Chair. I just want to say thank you for inviting us here. I think it's high time that we speak about GBV and not speak about it only in forums or with the standing committee. I think it's time that we go out and tell our friends, our family, even if we have a family gathering, about GBV and all the places that we can seek help, because that still is not yet out there. Awareness is not out there. These people stay at home and they cry at home and alone, and it filters down to their children. And there is where victims start, and there is where the perpetrators start. So let's take this further and not stop talking about GBV. And I also want to applaud Member Boyson for speaking out and speaking about cultural affairs. I mean, it's not always where we can be so open. There's times where we don't know can we speak about it or not. But I thank you, sir, for taking it upon yourself to do this for us. We as a department see it, and as I said, I'm working in a child and youth care center, and I see the effects. And it's sometimes that we are not open enough to speak about it. We are, as a department, busy with a cultural journey, and this is this type of stuff that we are bringing to the table, and we are looking for assistance and people that can help us with this. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, we are taking a comfort break we will be back at 10 to 11. Thank you. Monday, can we have the members to please come back in? You have some draft ones. Did you draw up some draft resolution? Members, we are now reconvening. I will ask Ms. Jamke, who has drawn up some draft resolutions. You can obviously amend them and add to it as we go along. Ms. Jamke?
Thank you, Chair. For you, the first one is the list of GBV programs. I'm not sure if you want that. Then there is a recommendation the department should consider expanding and enhancing the existing skills development and economic empowerment programs for GBV victims. You want that, member? Is that correct?
No, mine's A.
Oh,
Add to that second one. Or
Yeah,
add a whole new one. Okay, let us, the Monday finish quickly. Perhaps it is included there.
okay. A number of substance abuse centers funded by the department in the current financial year. Just said current financial year. Conduct details of GBV ambassadors for each town or area. That's all. Our stats with different ages and categories of those affected by GBV. I think, I'm not sure if that is that correct, ma'am?
Yes,
That
yes,
was yours,
correct.
Member Kasim?
Yes, and then also the LGBTQ community, which programs and where, because you only mentioned one center here in Cape Town.
Yeah,
So you also want stats for
LGBT.
and the programs. Okay.
And also where they are, because it was only mentioned the one in the metro. Member Van Vogel?
And then the resources allocated. Because I'm keen to understand the provincial government's financial commitment and investment to the strategy and how much funding is provided by national government. So if you do ever understand.
Breakdown and resources allocated to each pillar.
Does that conclude, members? You happy? Thank you very much, colleagues. Then we move along our agenda. We've dealt with the resolutions in terms of the presentation that we have received. We are now at consideration and adoption of the committee documents, the minutes of the 6th of August. Please check your attendance on page 1, members. And if indeed the minutes is the true reflection of what transpired on the day. Page 2. Any comments or amendments to page 2? Don't see any hands, colleagues. Page 3. Thank you very much. And then the last page, page 4. Are we happy, members, that this is indeed a true reflection? Can I get a proposal for adopting the minutes of the 6th of August?
I can propose.
Thank you very much, Member Van Minnen, and seconded by Member Stevens. The minutes of the 6th of August are then duly adopted. Honorable members, from your side, are there any other matters? I do have a few, but let me just first ask if you have any other pressing matters concerning to this committee at this point. Member Van Vogel?
Thanks, Chair. Mine is not concerns. I just need clarity in terms of our program. Are we going to, is the next point on the program? Okay, thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Van Vogel. Colleagues, is this under general Namonde?
Yes.
Okay, our first point under general. There is the intention of having a joint visit with the Standing Committee of Health to NGOs and health facilities in the Southern Cape from Monday, the 30th of September to Friday, the 4th of October. If members have perused the parliamentary program, you will notice that that visit falls within the constituency period, which means, first of all, we need to have concurrence of members of the committee, those that are interested in going on the joint visit with health, which means it will be health and social development. And then subsequent to that, I will then write to the Chief Whip to ask for the necessary permission that we do embark on that joint visit together with the Chairperson of Health, who is in the room, to get the necessary approval for us to do as indicated. Now, the Social Development Committee members, are you happy that we embark on the joint visit? I see a nodding of heads. I assume.
The face.
Yeah. Did mention the dates.
Yeah.
Yeah. The 30th of September to the 4th of October. So in terms of the detailed logistical arrangements, Ms. Jamke will keep us up to date. She is fortunately the procedural officer for both health and social development. So members will be kept in the loop. So we can tick that one off. There's unanimous concurrence by the committee that we embark on that oversight visit. Colleagues, then just also to inform you that this committee was furnished with communication from the NCOP in terms of the older persons bill. We are in the process of having it formally referred to this committee, but that is a piece of legislation that we will have to deal with. You will also see on the committee program there are some tentative dates in terms of briefings, as well as tentative dates in terms of public hearings. Now, colleagues, if we can today just take an in-principle decision as well, when we come to that point and having to decide, we just doing some proactive work when it comes to this process, so that the Monday doesn't have to fall around and we have to wait for another committee meeting to get concurrence, because we now know we will have to deal with that piece of legislation. So the norm is that, or the convention is that we, during a public hearing exercise, we visit the 6 districts within the province and conduct our public hearings in that districts. So for the Cape Town metro area, it's normally held here at the WCPP. For the Overberg area, it's normally held in Caledon. For the Garden Route in George. For Central Karoo in Beaufort West. For the West Coast in Saldanha. And for Cape Winelands in Worcester. That also makes a lot of sense in terms of getting the neighboring townspeople to that specific location for them to participate in the public hearing process. So tentatively, colleagues, can we take an in-principle decision that once we get to that point, that we conduct our oversight hearings at that 6 venues in the province? Are you happy? Thank you very much. I will just come back to the dates in the program as well. And then, colleagues, I also just need to caution you ahead of time. The older members will perhaps remember, but for the new members, During a public hearing period, there was at one point a request from members to have transport available. Now, public education and outreach does make transport available, but it is not based on your party-based institutions. For example, your political party's branch want to attend the public hearing. They unfortunately do not make transport available in that instance. We must just be aware of that. What they do is they engage the stakeholders, the focused stakeholders that is concerned with that specific bill, and they make the arrangements accordingly. So we've learned very, very valuable lessons in the past when it comes to public hearings. So I just want us, if you have any questions pertaining as to how the process will be, who's going to be invited, let's speak to each other ahead of time so we can iron out those little issues before we get to the public hearings. I thought I would just allude you to that. And also, besides the physical public hearings that will be held, members of the public or other stakeholders also will have the opportunity to make written submissions based on the bill. We have received, as members, we have received a copy of the bill. Namonde, I can remember it's only in English at this point in time, but you can request directly from Namonde to have a copy of the bill in your preferred language of choice, and she will then provide it to you. Colleagues, then just if you take a look at the committee program, we told ourselves from the onset that this is a working document and it might change as we go along because what emanates from the various engagements that we do have as a committee. So today we can tick off, we had the briefing, the 3rd of September. Colleagues are still going ahead as planned. There is just an amendment in terms of the 17th of September based on what was informed with the legislation that we now have to deal with. And at your own time, members, you can have a look at the committee program, give some input, ask your questions. As I said, Namonde worked in some tentative dates when it comes to the legislation that we will have to deal with. Namonde, excuse me, did I miss out on anything pertaining to the program?
No, you have covered everything, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Colleagues, you will also remember the briefing we had before this one, and the issue came up about the social workers. I think that was, excuse me, that was quite a shock to the system to hear that social workers are also subject to attacks as our EMS workers as well, given the important work that they are doing within our communities. I have asked Namonde to please draft up a letter, which I am seeking your indulgence to send this letter to the national minister in terms of the classification of these attacks. I think bringing this matter under the attention and drawing attention to it, that can assist in bringing those attack numbers down, and for social workers, assist them in that regard to do their job unhampered. Just wait on a Monday quickly. I just want to give you the wording.
I like it.
Monday. Colleagues, so the letter from this committee under my name as the chairperson will be directed to the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, and it deals with the classification of attacks on social workers as an attack on the state. And over the recent months, the letter reads as follows. Over the recent months, There has been a disturbing increase in attacks on social workers in the Western Cape, with almost one attack occurring every week. And now you can see, members, the importance thereof. Social workers who perform the critical task of delivering essential services to some of the most vulnerable members of our society are being targeted by criminal syndicates. The Standing Committee on Social Development firmly believes that these attacks are not just assaults on individual social workers, but constitute an attack on the state itself. These attacks directly undermine the state's ability to deliver essential services to its citizens, disrupt the operations of the Western Cape Department of Social Development, and place a significant burden on public resources. Given the severity and implications of these attacks, we respectfully urge you and your department to consider reclassifying such offences to be treated as an attack on the state. Such a reclassification would ensure that these crimes are met with the gravity they deserve, leading to harsher penalties for perpetrators and serving a deterrent against future attacks. Social workers are indispensable to the well-being of our communities. They operate under extraordinary challenging conditions, and their safety and ability to carry out their duties must be a priority for us all. It is crucial that we send a strong message that any act of violence against them will be met with the full force of the law. We trust that you will give this matter your serious consideration and look forward to your positive response. Yours sincerely. Colleagues, are you happy with the content and we direct the letter as such? Member Van Vogel? Thank you very much. Then we can also, for the minute purposes, indicate that there's unanimous concurrence by the committee in that regard. Colleagues, are there any other matters? Member Van Vogel? PCC Centre.
Yeah, so I'm not sure where are we going to fit, but I think
It's important that we do an oversight at those centers. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Van Vogel. I'm now looking at Namonde with a smile on my face because she's very much stressed that this program is so overpopulated at this time. And she will have to fine-tune the public hearing dates within the program. So can we please give an opportunity to just make provision for them first?
Yes.
As it does have to receive precedence, and then we see how best we can fit in pending those visits to the TCC centers. Please make a note and we will minute that accordingly so that we don't forget about it. Member Stevens, are you covered? Thank you very much, colleagues. That deals with our business this morning. Thank you so much for healthy debate and productive discussions. May you have a most blessed week ahead. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.